I'm Mr. Kangas, and today we're going to be taking a look at Chapter 9, Section 2, the real number system. And in today's lesson, we're going to be taking a look at solving equations that have squares in them. As I pointed out at the end of the last video, I'm not sure why this section wasn't put in Chapter 9, Section 1, but when you do your 9.2 worksheet, these types of problems will be thrown at you, where you have variables that are squared and you're trying to solve for the variable. So you might see something like 2n squared equals 170. So how would you solve this problem? This is actually technically, it looks like a one-step equation, but it's actually a two-step equation. You're going to go through the normal procedure that you would for a multi-step equation. You're actually going to be getting rid of the square last. So just continue through this like you would any other equation. Get rid of this 2, because if this were a one-step equation, you would get rid of the 2. The 2 is being multiplied by n, so you do the opposite. You do 2n squared divided by 2. We're going to divide both sides by 2. And we end up with n squared equals, what was that? N squared equals 85. So at this point, in order to solve the problem, you would need to get rid of the square. So what we would do at this point is find the square root of n squared and the square root of 85. And the reason for this is because if you recall correctly, when we're solving multi-step equations, 1 or 2-step or 3-step equations, whatever it may be, if you want to cancel something out, such as when we wanted to cancel this 2 out, we said that 2 is being multiplied. The opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. That's how you would cancel out a 2 that's being multiplied. Because if I do 2 times n squared, then divided by 2, it'll bring me right back to n squared. For example, if I replaced n squared with 5, 2 times 5 is 10, divided by 2 is 5, so it'd be right back to 5. So that's how you cancel things out. Basically you do the opposite. So the opposite of squaring something would be square rooting it, because for example, if I had 5 squared, that gets me the 25, and the square root of 25 is 5. So I squared the 5, then I square rooted the answer, and I'm back at 5. So those two things are opposites. They cancel each other out. They undo what the other one does. So to get rid of that square, I'm going to square root it. Take 85, square root it. Now, the square root of n squared would get you n, and some of us may be saying, like, how does that get you n? Remember, if I take 5 squared and square root it, it brings me back to 5. Because 5 squared is 25, and the square root of 25 is 5. That's going to be true of any number I plug in there. If I plug in a 6, I'll get 6 for an answer. If I plug in a 10 here, I get 10 for an answer. If I plug in an n, then I get n for an answer. And the square root of 85 is going to fall between 9 and 10, because 9 squared is 81, and 10 squared is 100. Now if I had a calculator with me, I could get you the exact square root, but if you don't have a calculator, there's nothing wrong with estimating. You know right about where your answer lies. And the answer in this case would be between 9 and 10. So that's really all there is to that section. If you need to pause or rewind the video, please do so. But in order to solve, in order to get rid of a square, just square root it. Really all this is doing, we've said to get rid of addition, you subtract. To get rid of subtract, you add. To get rid of multiplication, you divide. To get rid of division, you multiply. And now we're telling you that to get rid of a square, you square root. So it's just another opposite to remember. Tune in for the next chapter, Chapter 9, Section 3.